Thank you so much, Sue. Those are very kind, heart-filling words to me, too. I'm really happy to be here with Unity. What a perfect place to be on the 5th of July, in unity, right? I mean, isn't that what the whole world is crying for? Years and years ago, I studied the Course in Miracles, and I remember that everything is a cry for love. Everything. And so, since that's part of the vision of unity, that we see this world that is centered in God and we created in love and in harmony and in abundance, that's the mandate. That's the trajectory that collectively Unity Santa Rosa has ascribed to and has chosen. And those are mighty, it's a mighty big choice. And can you all hear me well enough? Because I find myself talking really softly and I like it. So I want to make sure that you like it too. I remember a minister saying, you know, every Sunday for 52 times a year, we tell the same story and we do our best to make it different. And it's really that one message, that foundational message that God is all there is. That means me, you, everything we see, everything we feel, think, everything we like, and everything we don't like. And all the things that we can't see and that are buried inside of us, tucked away for safekeeping or to protect us or God knows what. So, you know, I was grateful to Tom because the last time I spoke here, he sent me the Unity 5 principles and the vision and the mission and the values. And I read them and thought about them a lot in the past few days. And really it's what it comes down to. Everything is an extrapolation of that first principle, which is God is all there is. And we're here to duplicate that nature. We are, as your principle states, the second principle, that we are created in the image and likeness of God. So I think of that as, you know, God is the macro and we are the micro. God is the big picture and we are the tiny holographic piece of that big picture that holds it all but isn't all of it, as Sue said. Or, yeah, I think it was, I can't remember, maybe it was Hope that said that. But the song and the prayer were the whole talk today, and they were the whole essence of that first principle. So if that's all we know, and we don't have any cute little handles for anything, if that's all we know, and if that's all, you know, the fifth principle is really the kicker, isn't it? That's the one where it says, well, it isn't enough to know it. You got to live it. You got to live it. And so what does living it mean to us? That's the question. And are we living it? And so every day is new. So thank heavens there's a new way to unpack this principle and choose to live it in a fresh way every single day. So today, I'm in my favorite theme, really, which is from chaos to order. And I want to, Harker has shared the hosting with me for a minute, so I can share my screen. So let me just get up on the screen what I want, and then go back to Zoom. Oh, well, I guess you have to do it the other way around. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so let's see, share screen. There you go. Do you see that? Somebody say out loud whether they see it or not. Because I can't see
No,
you.
cannot see it.
Cannot see it. Aha. So I didn't share my screen. Now do you see my screen?
No.
You just still see me?
Yes.
All right. How about now?
It better.
Okay, there we go.
You've started screen sharing, it says.
Okay,
Yes.
now Do you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I discovered this image a long time ago, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and I just love it. And I thought it was just perfect for today because in the little introduction that we put in the bulletin that went out to you a couple of days ago, thanks to Harker, it talked about, the title was From Chaos to Order If You Let It. So that's the live it part. And what if the chaos and the order were both in the first principle all there is? What if they're both totally God? No absence of God in any of the chaos or in any of the order. What if that were the case? What if that were true? We say it is. But when we're in the living it, when we're out in the back 40 with our mud boots on, herding the cattle up to the barn, we know what we believe or not, right? It's like, when will those darn cows ever learn? Why don't they? I always thought they'd like to go to the barn. They don't want to go at all. What do I have to do to get them there? We get caught in those conditions and then we take back that control. And we forget that, all the farm animals generally like to go back to the barn because that's where they're fed. We get fed here in community, in spiritual community. We get fed when we study, when we consciously surrender to being that microcosm of the thing itself and open to see the lesson in everything, open to see the goodness in everything, open to not be afraid to look at what we used to call the bad, the ugly, and allow ourselves to see it as Mother Teresa would see it. Oh, there goes Jesus. Oh my goodness. Acting out a little bit today. Oh my goodness, having a bad day. That's all right. There goes Jesus. Right? I mean, I'm working that at some pretty interesting levels with some people I really don't even like to hear, let alone see or wish well. But that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing, because anything unlike that creates more chaos in my life, and it has me mentally or imaginally fall out of the kingdom of heaven. Of course, we can't fall out of the kingdom of heaven because everywhere we go, there it is, as we make it. We all have our own little gardens. We have our own little gardens. Maybe it's not called Eden. Maybe it's called suffering. Maybe it's called striving. Maybe it's called not enough. I have a not enough garden. I used to have a not enough garden. That's where I started. My garden was not enough. If anything resonates with you today, just catch it. Because what we're looking at today is that inside of chaos, in the midst of the worst of it, where you see the curve has not only not flattened, it's going in the opposite direction to worse than it's ever been. Inside of that, even, there's an order, a higher order. And even that is part of that higher order, is just hidden, looking like chaos. But if it were really God, the principle is that if you can see me and I can see you and we know we're God, if that principle works right here like that, then it works everywhere. You can't be selective and say, well, it only works with my friends, or it only works when it's easy. Michael Beckwith has a great phrase, and the phrase is, what we're really here to do as ministers is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Because if we're happy in our comfort zone, we're not using it to grow. We're safe. And there's times when that's really what we need to be. But in those times, we tend to build the bricks up a little bit. Oh yeah, I like this. I have it the way I like it. This is just perfect order for me. And, we get the idea of what order is. And, my mom ate the same thing for breakfast every morning. And she used the same plate. She had hundreds of plates, but she used the same plate, the same butter knife, the same amount of jelly, the same amount of cottage cheese. Her egg cooked exactly the same number of minutes every day. And back when I was 50, I used to think that was funny. And now I notice that I have 2 or 3 breakfasts, but I do things the same way. I have my little patterns, my things that make me feel comfortable. And so when I go traveling, or I'm staying at my son's house where I'm taking care of his house right now, and there's a parrot, 2 parakeets, 2 fish tanks, 2 guinea pigs, 2 dogs, a bearded dragon, 3 chicken coops, 5 ducks, and 13 chickens, and 6 acres of land and gardens and watering and the bird feeders and all of that. And so my little comfort zone is like, So what if it were true that inside of that chaos of his menagerie, they're all wonderful creatures, and I've come to love them all. Even the one that keeps me awake every time I'm there for an hour barking because her master's not there. I mean, we can get irritated at the silliest things, can't we? I mean, do you ever get irritated at anything that really has no, really? But what if inside that chaos is that perfect order? What if you could not evolve? What if you could not change your habits? What if you could not stretch into the magnificence that you're born to be by staying in your own order, in your own comfort zone? By staying in that own safe place, you wouldn't learn what you have within you that is no longer useful. Because we build up these protections from seeing ourselves. We build up these patterns that avoid having to look at that thing in our past that was rather unpleasant, or where we didn't behave quite well, or where we haven't done a review and a forgiveness. Stop sharing. That's a good idea. We've got that now. There we go. Thank you. What if inside this chaos that's going on in our country, the worst of it, the very worst of it, the needless deaths, which we all have hundreds of reasons of who to blame and how and why it shouldn't have been let to be this way. And what is a good Christian to do in a moment like this? A good Christian is to go, I have no idea, why this is happening like this or has to. But somehow collectively we've created the container for this. It somehow is serving a purpose for us as a humanity. And so therefore, as your 5th principle states, how can I put the consciousness of order into practice here so that I can rise in my consciousness out of chaos to see that inside of it there's something good trying to work, and how could I apply that in my life? What do I really believe? What do I really believe? And most of the time, I think I know more than I know. Or I wish that I know more than I really realize I do know. So what really works for me at times like this, any little or big change, is to put peace first, because peace is a conscious choice. Peace is also part of that order of the infinite. Order includes all of those principles on which we stand. And each of us has a principle that is our rock, and they change over time. My first principle was abundance because I didn't have any. And I had to learn how to believe that I was enough and that there was enough. And even still, doing the work I'm doing right now, I am along with 190 other ministers, are in a 6-week class that has daily homework with public answers, so all 190 see everything we're processing. Deepest classwork I've ever done using the book Me and White Supremacy. It is a butt kicker, I can promise you that. It is pulling out of me things that I didn't know I had buried out there in the back 40. Huge things. Shame and guilt. And then we listen to Brene Brown and she says, it's okay. Everybody's got shame, but look at what you've allowed it to do in your life. You need to let that go. So it feels like chaos because it's up. It feels like chaos because you can't believe that such a wonderful liberal such as I could be racist. Not me. You can't not be racist in this country if you're white. It's endemic into our language. You can't be not having part of you duality. It doesn't mean we're all of us is racist, but we have it in us. That's a hard thing to hear. We have duality in us. Racist is just another expression of it. We have that sense of separation. At some level, we still don't believe we're enough, even with 30 years of focus. But if we don't know that we don't think we're enough, we'll never get out of that comfort zone enough to find the magnificence that we are. You have to face it. You have to face it. And so for me, whenever, my body is the key to me. It's the place that tells me right off the bat that I'm starting to get anxious. I don't know what, before my brain kicks in, my throat tightens or my heart starts to pound or I feel this pressure in my chest. I've come to recognize it now. So when that happens, I now am trained to take a breath and just go, oh, I need to choose peace now because something's going on. And I do, I choose peace. And I breathe 5 to 7 more times until I feel calm. And when I started to do this, I didn't know that there was a whole science behind how it works, but there is. And that's not for today's talk. But I was very gratified to know that I'd tripped into something that really I could prove. It was really great when I could put the science behind my, erudite words. So peace first allows me to put the handle on whatever the sense of order is. That is the gate that opens the door, the handle that opens the door to whatever principle I'm looking for, whether it's love or the power of my word or abundance or the main principle, unity, that there's only God. So how can I apply that here? Peace first gives me the courage to just do the work. Peace first is my handle for the whole thing, for all of life. And I urge you to just try it. I feel like evangelical. I want the whole world to have their own handle. I have a wonderful meditation that helps you find your handle. You describe it, you see it, you feel it, you can draw it. It's like, what's your name for God? What's your handle for the journey of life? What does your peace handle look like? It gets me on the path. Choosing peace gets me on the path so that then I can start facing all those things that I don't want to and take responsibility. Doesn't that sound like a lot of fun? But the kicker is, if we don't do it, it's going to come and bite us and knock us down and drag us around and create more chaos. That's called afflicting the comfortable. If we don't afflict ourselves, some greater sense of order will come along and do it for us. That's just the magic of the spiritual world, right? Oh, joy or rapture, as Ruthie would say. It's like, oh my goodness gracious, I thought I learned this. I thought I was done. I thought I was on to something bigger. Anybody relate to what I'm talking about? I mean, really? So if it's really true, as the 5 unity principles say, that it's all God, and that that God lives in every one of us, as Maggie Cole would say, not like a raisin in a bun, but in every single cell, in every tingle of every nerve, in every breath that we take, there's God. And if that's so, the principle says we experience this reality, this heaven on earth, by our thinking. Well, what are we thinking about the chaos that we're living in today? I mean, when nobody's listening, what are you thinking? I know what we're thinking now when we're all together. Yeah, we're all thinking we're one. And that's great. And that's true. And we're here to cultivate that plant of knowing that we're all God. We're also here to identify, well, first, to get the courage to then put the boots on and get out into the garden to identify the rocks, the boulders, maybe, the weeds, so we can remove those and make room for the new plants. And that's the vision that pulls us. Michael Beckwith says, pain pushes until vision pulls. So we know what the pain feels like. I mean, we know what it is. I mean, I made a list, the duality, the polarity, the deceit, the pain, the death, all of those things. I mean, you can't escape it unless you choose to not focus on it. And that's what we must do. Peace is a principle. Peace is a choice. Peace is a practice. Peace is a way of life. You have to choose where you put your attention. Because if you don't, the collective world out there is just really in trauma. And that trauma is very magnetic. And so it's very easy to say, what can I do? I'm just one person. I can't change this. It's a mess. But that's not only true. You can change it. You can change it for you. And as you change it for you, you affect everyone around you. As you find more peace and more abundance, more prosperity, more comfort, not too much comfort, more courage, as you do it, other people around you will notice and they'll say, oh, what's going on with you? How come you're always in a good mood? Life is hell. What are you doing? How could you be so happy? I mean, I've had people say that to me. How could you be so cheery? Well, there's nothing to be cheery about. I say, oh my God, this is the most important time in my life. I've never felt like life is more important than right this minute. Because of the principle, the fourth principle is that there's power in this affirmative prayer. There's power when we use our word consciously. When we do affirmative prayer, we tap into and we duplicate the consciousness of God. We're not here to try to pray and beg God to do something. God can do for us only what God can do through us. In the little bulletin thing, I said, we don't get what we pray for, we get what we pray from. We don't get what we want, we get who we are. These prayers, we pray for ourselves, that we might remember these principles, that there's only one God, I'm made in the image and likeness of God, that I create my experience of this God through my thinking and my feeling and my choices and my attention and my actions. And as I do that, as I put that into action, my life changes. Chaos is such a godly gift. And it's inviting a new, greater, more peaceful, loving, prosperous sense of order. Imagine what is possible. Just imagine if the world were like your vision of the world, Unity's vision of the world. A world that we co-create with the infinite, that is loving, harmonious, and abundance. Imagine that that's so. What would that look like? That's what to do instead of complaining. That's what to do instead of letting your neighbor drag you into some downer conversation. You say, excuse me, honey, I think I left a pot on the stove, and off you go, and you put your mind aright again. Or if you're at your family's, I use the bathroom. It never fails. You know, they want to drag me into some conversation of limitation. Oh, I'll be right back. I just need to use the restroom. And sure enough, by the time I get back, they're onto something else. And you know, we have to learn how to focus our attention. It's our biggest responsibility. Where do we put our attention? So I invite us to put our attention on the fact that chaos is an expression of God, bringing us into a higher sense of order. And order itself has to continually change. Since we don't like change, God uses chaos. But what about when we start liking change more? Then there's less chaos because we don't need it, because we're already creating a new groove to like change. Anybody into that game? That is like so fantastic. When you wake up one day and you go, oh, gosh, you know, I actually haven't been blaming anybody all week long, or I haven't been, you know, trying to change anybody or make them like me. So, I mean, really, this is such a freedom. You know, this is fears, false evidence appearing real, freedom with liberty and justice for all. This is the things we remember at this time of the year. And even when people who we don't agree with are remembering them differently than we do, let them do their thing. Let them just be who they are. We can't change anybody but ourselves. But we can change everything when we gather together and find this common meaning and practice it together. It amplifies it. That's one reason community is so important. And imagine, I mean, just imagine what the world would look like when the unities of Santa Rosa's vision sees a unity of nations out there, a unity of people, where competition, I mean, I spent time this week, not because I chose to, but because God pushed its way through the writing I was doing and took it off to this vision of possibility that just took my breath away, where competition is used consciously to raise up our ability to compete with each other for the greater good, for a better cure to cancer, for how to make money, but not so much as people can't use it. Who can create a better system of an economy that works for everybody? Who can create a better system of keeping people healthy? You know, there is a plethora. We'll never be bored using competition consciously. We don't have to get rid of business or, you know, investment tax credits or any of those things. We just have to use them for good, which is in the first principle. You know, it's for good. God isn't out there trying to trick us. Everything, whatever God is to you, it's a living presence. It is a living energy, and we have it within us in every sense of who we are. And we can use this chaos so consciously. So in Ukraine, the word for spiritual mind treatment, which is the way I was trained to call affirmative prayer, the way it's translated is a word of spiritual healing. I really like that. That our affirmative prayer is a word of spiritual healing. So I'd like to invite you to imagine that world of your vision. I'd like you to close your eyes, and we're going to take a 3-minute meditation prayer. And then I've probably gone well over my time, but I'm sorry. And let's do this together, okay? So I invite you to remember, what is the vision that is pulling you? What is your personal version of this world that works for everyone? What matters the most to you? And none of the yeah buts and anything else. Just imagine that it's totally possible. And now put yourself out 5 years, 10 years, and see it as done. And I want you to be there. I want you to meander in that space 5 or 10 years forward and look at the different parts of your life that are totally not only transformed, transmuted by this possibility that you are planting seeds for every day. Ita ona yes. Ita ona yes. Ita ona yes. Itak 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 ona yes. Ona yes. Ona yes. Itak ona yes. And so it is. Amen. Everywhere I go, the light, the love, the joy, they go with me. Everything I command, God says, it is your wish. It is done. And so I choose for myself, and I invite all of us who join me to choose this week to see into the chaos and find the good there, the God there, to find the message there, the lesson, what needs to be released in ourselves, so that there is more room for this vision, this pure vision of possibility of a world that works in love, in harmony, and in abundance. I know we are called to this, and becoming loyal and dedicated and devoted and ruthlessly faithful to this, it shall be. It shall be heaven on earth. And so it is. Thank you. Amen.